Hi, everybody. I'm here today all by myself. Hi, Jeffrey. And Jen Miranda's here. And Jen's wishing everyone a happy Tuesday and is taking a well deserved break from her homework. Um, if you kind of get lost in this, just go look the show up again. I wrote all of the complete description of the article I'm going to quote from. I worked a little bit with it yesterday with Terry. And then I thought about it and what I was going to look at today. And it's how do we move ahead? Alberta. Alberta, Canada. Beautiful country. The western part of Canada's every bit as different as the western parts of the US are from the eastern part of the US. Yes, we're all going to try and have a blessed 2025, and it's seeming to get off to a rocky start. And I think it's getting kind of a rocky start for all of us. And I've been getting some messages on what to work with. And J.A., where are you in suburban Chicago? I grew up in Joliet. What I was about to talk about is I talked about this yesterday with, if you didn't see that show, I did it with Terry from Holding Your Space. And we took her sort of point of view on it. But Hoffman Estates, yeah, I know where that is. I knew actually the Hoffman family that a lot of that stuff's named after. I went to school. I went from kindergarten on with a guy named Charlie Hoffman who ended up being a dentist in Florida. Is where he eventually settled. But he was like, I'm a boomer family. We had 5 kids in my family, and the Hoffmans had 5 kids in their family. And there was a family on our block that had 11 kids. I mean, it was like that time that you hear about all those kids that flooded the schools and they had to build buildings to hold us all. And now they're taking them all back because people aren't having as many kids as they used to have and all that stuff. So, it was fun. Anyway, to get back to kind of where I was headed in the first place is if you didn't see the show yesterday, we had this. It's Uhtceare as how you say it. And I actually looked it up. Hi, Dr. Gail. Looked it up, and it's an Old English word, and it means lying awake in the middle of the night until dawn. And you're going to see when we get to the comments that got submitted today, I have a whole bunch of other people who are already card-holding members in that club. And this is about how to motivate yourselves to get ahead. And then success has its origin in the Latin word for succedere. And I did not say that right. And I took 4 years of Latin and I didn't even try. It's a combination of sub, meaning next to or after, and cedere, meaning to go and move. So if you read the article that I have put the information in, it's the articles from the behavioral scientist magazine, but I got it from from an email thing that you can sign up for, and it's called Smarter Daily, and it's smart with an R and then daily. And this guy posts some really interesting things. Sometimes he posts stuff and I'm like, I don't really care. But sometimes he posts stuff like this and it's spot on. And he was talking about what everybody talks about in the early parts of January, how the 1st of the January we get all our resolutions written and we're going to go run out there and do all this great stuff. And then what happens to us? Why do we fall apart? And he talks about he talks a lot in some of the other articles. He talks about metaphysical things, but they come through different disciplines, but they're talking about what we talk about all the time. And he talks about that word that there's this Uhtceare, which means waking up in the middle of the night in shock, and then success. How do we get beyond that? Well, you got to get to a place that you move. If you lay there in shock, or I'm not going to move, or it's too scary, you're never going to go anywhere. And they talk about making intentions over resolutions, which I think is really an important thing to think about, because when I make my crystal grids, and I showed them yesterday, I'll show them again today. That means Jen gets to see her thing one more time. It is not yet packed up in the veil. Whoops. And I don't want to drop it. This is Jen's, and it's called Healing. And I hope you don't mind me telling people that, Jen. But this is Jen's crystal grid that she got from me. It's on her way. And what she'll do with this is, on the back, there will be a place, some paperwork attached. And it tells her what every stone is, why it's there, what the energy is that's behind it. Then I teach her in a separate letter how to fire it up. So it's got the name of the grid and the stones and everything, and they're always there. And they come from my starting with a card like this. This is a card Jen chose to start this grid. And it was interesting for her that we got healing, because she had just found out that she had a family history of having a spiritual healing member in her family that had never been revealed to her. And she's on her way to working with that. So I'm a big believer in intentions over resolutions. I think intentions give yourself more wiggle room to work with it. And it gives you, and you can modify the intention as you go along, as you find out. Sometimes we resolve to do something, then we get into it and we find out that's not going to work. Then you have rituals that can anchor your mind, and that can be everything from, and I was thinking about this because I was looking up some rituals to talk about. And one of them was candle gazing. And somebody said how she used to use candle gazing a lot to calm herself down. And I was remembering when I was a little kid, we used to, every so many Sundays, we'd go to Ella's house. And Ella was, in essence, my grandmother. My grandparents were in Canada. We never got I couldn't even go see them till I was 7, because my parents weren't U.S. citizens yet. So Ella kind of arrived as my brother, just younger than me, when my mom was going to have 4 little kids in the house. Ella arrived to help, and Ella never left. And Ella and Ole, her husband, Ole Olson, had fought in World War I, and I can remember as a child running around their house with his old World War I hat that he'd worn as a soldier. And Ella and Ole were just like always part of our house. More Ella than Ole. Ole was kind of like, I think he always viewed the 5 of us heading towards his house like the Germans coming over the top again. But Ella used to have these big family dinners, and she had her kids there and all of her grandchildren. And we just got subsumed into the family and just became part of the thing. And one time we were there, and this will shock everyone who's ever watched my channel, I was a chatty little kid that wouldn't shut up. And my mother I used to hear her gripe, there's just some way I could find to calm that kid down. Well, one of Ella's daughters said, we've got some candles over here. So she lit a candle for me. And it was the sort you normally put on it was a taper candle. And she said, just look in the middle of the flame and tell me and see what you see. She didn't say, tell me what you see, because that wouldn't have shut me up. And I just sat there staring at the candle, looking at stuff. And I guess I remember being absolutely intrigued by being able to sit there and watch that flame. And my mother walked by and she said, oh my God, that's the quietest I've seen her in months. I may go to Marshall Fields and buy out every candle they own. So candle gazing is, and if it would calm me down as a small child, it'll calm you down, I think. But and right now is not a great time to tell people to go walking in nature, because that's nature's proving difficult for us all this January. Between the fires in California, which, by the way, I do believe Kim from Intuitive You and Linda G are having some kind of fundraiser on Wednesday. If you're not, I can't imagine you're not subscribed to their channels. But anyway, I've heard they're going to have something for that. And so you got the fires in California, and then a person that many of you have seen in the chat here, Cold Toes. She was in visiting. She lives in Alaska, and she was in the cities, their big cities, which are really aggressive suburbs here in Texas. But she was in visiting with her kids, and it got so cold where her house was, and she had it all set up to have emergency heat to keep everything going. Part of it didn't work, and some of her plumbing's frozen and stuff. She wrote me she'd get back to me when she knew where she was going to end up. So I felt like yesterday when I was going through my emails, it was like fire and ice. LA's burning down, Alaska's freezing over, Japan's getting shaken. It was a full moon. And so that stuff's going on. But if you can find a ritual or something to anchor yourself, I know one person who's also a card-carrying member of the 3 to 4 o'clock wake up club. They take a tarot card. They just pull one blind out of a deck. Don't look at it. Put it on the bedside table. And if they wake up in the middle of the night, they know they have that card to go to. They can look at that card. It's not like turning your phone on and getting blue light that's going to wake you up. And they use that. They program themselves with that. That might be something you could try. There's also an article. If you go to you can see it in the description. The article it's with this that tells you to embrace the interplay of the darkness and the light. And they also have a thing about the role of curiosity, and that can help you with the success part to move towards something else. And those are the ideas that are in this articles. I would like us all to be able to move forward into the new year with grace, with curiosity, and moving forward. So what we're going to go to is I did have some questions that came up. Okay, now this is a long one. It's a 3-parter. The first part of the question is, in the past few days, as I lay down to sleep, the loud inner critic, that person, we all have that person, comes over to me. And when I wake up now, it's still there. This is the same person going on. But during my waking hours, this mean inner critic is not present. I am very hopeful because I'm very grounded. This inner critic expands current challenges that I am facing, and it feels sometimes insurmountable. And then her last thing was a compliment to me. Thanks for honing this session. Well, to talk about the inner critic that you hear in the middle of the night, you only hear it in the middle of the night. Some people hear it all day long. They hear it constantly. And what you need to do is pull into your breath, get into your breathing, and hear whose voice is saying that to you. Because all those little inner critic guys were set up by people who were around us when we were young and impressionable and took everybody's opinion as gospel. And if you listen carefully, sometimes it'll be a couple different voices, depends on what the issue is. But if you can identify who put that idea that's mistaken in your head, then you can begin to deal with them. Then you can begin to deal with that idea and deal with ways to deal with it. You can maybe even go back and do where did I first hear that and why did I listen and what was going on, all that. And I had to do that with a lot of voices, and some of them were amazing. Some of them were even other kids that I really liked when I was growing up that we used to play together. But they said something and my mind holds it totally out of context. And I had to get rid of them and just say, no, that's not true. I can do this, or I am capable of doing that. Because unfortunately, not fortunately, I raised 3 kids and they all made it to adult status and they're walking around and everything. But they still have, you know, inner critic voices and they'll talk to me about them. And I think a lot of us are hearing that right now because of the Mars being involved with this full moon. It brings out a lot of anger and energy. And I think it's when we get angry with ourselves that we pay more attention to these folks. But go read Ness, go to that article and see if you can find something in the article. There's some really good. They're saying what we're saying all the time. They're saying about getting out of yourself and getting into newer habits, but they're like, they also talk about how hard it is to begin a new habit. And one part of the intro to the article was a small little paragraph written by a guy who used to be a writer on Saturday Night Live. And he said, the very best skits you ever remember seeing on Saturday Night Live always started with someone in the writer's room saying, no, that will never work. Irregardless of whether it's brilliant and it will work, there's always a no. And he said that we only succeed when we get past listening to those no's. So that may be also a place that you're at. And here's another question I got. And this person, you ought to exchange phone numbers with Ness. And we have another one on here who talks about waking up. I wake up at 4 a.m. I feel disturbed. How do I break this cycle? Well, Melanie, to be ready for it and plan for it and acknowledge that it's there. I think the worst thing you can do is, I'm going to sleep all night. I don't care what. Well, the universe has other plans. And I know a lot of people that are waking up. Now, I had the first 6 months of 2024, I had a terrible time. I was waking up all the time in the middle of the night and trying to figure out what was going on. And what I came to understand was that was at the end of downloads, and I would come awake because it was like, it gave me a few short seconds if I chose to record what the downloads were about. Or otherwise, it would, but it wasn't, I wasn't waking up with heart and anxiety problems. So my heart wasn't beating too fast. It all depends on what's waking you up. But to break that cycle, be prepared for it. Like I said, have a card there or something you like to hold on to a crystal that you particularly like. Talk to the crystal and tell it you want to go back to sleep. If you can, I have a phone, I have a pretty good smartphone, and I can program it so I can have a one touch and I can bring up a meditation that says, so you've woken up in the middle of the night, and then it takes you through the steps to get back down. Those are things I use. Anybody wants to put in chat something you can think that you use, that will help. But yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of card carrying members to the 4 a.m. club right now. And Spacey Angel, where did my concentration go? When we get so scattered, or when we're in a lot of change, we can tend to get scattered and then we really can't concentrate. Maybe it's just not time for you to concentrate. What are you trying to concentrate on? I'll pull a quick card and see if I can get something out of shamanic crystals for you. And where'd your concentration go? Didn't come here. Haven't seen it flying around. I've seen flying around here is my beings I'm going to talk about next week. Jada and the little one, they're the elementals that I'm seeing. I'm trying to paint a picture of what Jada looks like. We've got a picture of what Cecil looks like, my dragon, but we don't have Jada and the little one. Little one moves so fast, I'm not sure I could paint him. This is a good stone. Where did your concentration go? It says stand up and face your choices with concentration, with confidence. and character. And that's tiger's eye. And tiger's eye is an incredibly interesting stone. The grid I showed you had some tiger's eye in it, but they weren't traditionally cabochon stones. They're like little flares of tiger's eye. But let's see what we got for you. I'm going to give you the quick opening paragraph on tiger's eye, and he can tell you about your gun. Stand up, pursue your choices with confidence and character. I am the spirit of the tiger's eye, and I welcome you, dear soul. My strength lies in presence, awareness, intelligence, and independence, and a practicality in dealing with life situations. Here with me are my sacred cat friends. They will wish to tell you something important. If you are influenced by others' opinions due to a lack of self confidence, a loss of clarity about your own desires, then external judgments and doubts will stop you from being able to think through the process. And it's tiger's eye is a very independent stone. If you ever hold a piece of it that's even a small piece, you can feel it. I will help you balance your energy. Let me be with you in your workspace so I can support your sense of independence. I think what it's saying is, to me, the reason you're having trouble concentrating is because you're letting the other influences come through. And the second you get set Spacey Angel on where you want to go, you're letting the other thoughts in. So you need to whittle out what's me, what I really want to hold on to, and go from there. And this is shifting 3 shifting veils. May I have a reading on my dragon? I know that she has blue eyes and her body is purple, violet, magenta, and Arctic lime green. Okay. Um, please and thank you. Your dragon's saying it's there. It's available to you, but when it tries to talk to you, you go, oh, you can't be talking to me. And you need to open up 3 shifting veils and listen to what it's saying. And it's not an easy thing to listen to what they have to say to us. I didn't have much choice because Cecil kidnapped me and took me around the world and then was so part of that whole experience. But Cecil doesn't show up all the time. You know, he's here when he needs to take me somewhere or move me or make me understand things. He brought Jada and the little thing to me, but they're all they all have different roles in different places. We have to be open to them. And I think sometimes, you know, it's fear. I told this to Terry after were off the air yesterday. Fear is face everything and recover, or the F word, if I see it, YouTube will demonetize me, F everything and run. So when you're letting fear into your life, you just have to face it. And I know it's so much more tempting to put the track shoes on and run away. But you just can't do that right now. That's not what we're here to do. And this week's all important. Okay, let's see. I'm checking some ones I want to talk about. And this I'm going to show. It's really important right now that you hit the like button and hit the bell to subscribe and hit all notifications, because yesterday I had a friend that was on a show and it popped up in my it finally showed up last night. They did their reading in the early afternoon, and I didn't see that the show was up until at 9 o'clock at night. And that was after I was actively pursuing it. And I know that my not subscribers numbers are all important, but they keep going up and down by 10 and 15, and then they go back up and then they go back down. Okay. And okay. Ness, okay, you say you don't recognize the voice. One of the things I've been reading about is we have the parents we have. And some of us have more parents than we want. You know, if you're adopted or you find out later one of your parents isn't really your parents or somehow you're not related to your family tree. So then you got a whole nother set of voices out there. And those can come in from past lives, but you really need to go and have someone work with you in a past life or do meditations about a past life to figure out who the critic is. And because Terry and I were talking about parents and listening to parents' voices and for their voices, and how some people have super parents that are above, they were around kind of when you were deciding how to come in and run this life. Those voices could still be there. We like to think we bring across nothing but great stuff, but it's not always true. Um, you know, or you can just challenge the inner critic when it starts talking to you, saying, "Who the hell are you to tell me what to do?" Maybe they'll tell you. You never know. It could happen. Huh. And here's something. Tammy's going back to playing darts again. Yeah, I've gone to a couple parties and I've pushed myself to go to events um, because it got so easy just to flop in the chair once the world said, don't go out anymore. All those people were like, oh my God, I can't sit in my house. And I'm like, oh, I could sit here forever. So, yeah, getting out there, Tammy, and pushing yourself to go out and do different things, try different stuff, see what the people are like. You know, we're supposed to find a new tribe. What are you going to wait? Hope your tribe comes with the UPS jacket on? And Jen Miranda's solution for those of you who are in the 4 a.m. club, great idea to pull a card at that time. I'm definitely one of the wake up club too, but she started jotting down what's waking her up, and that will help you. That will help you figure it out. Okay, those are the ones I already saw. Okay, so I had. Okay, let's see. Greetings from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I haven't been with you for some time, but my mental state was trash. That's okay, Candy. Everybody's mental state was trash. And if yours was, I don't want to deal with these people understand. If you want to come hang out, we're here too. And then my elementals are popping up again. I'm trying to catch them before they walk away. They are pesky little critters. They're not easy to communicate with yet. That has a lot to do with vibrational levels and how we deal with them. I'm going to spend a couple minutes here sort of explaining why the elementals went away. They were, I don't know how many of you had a comprehensive world history course. And I had a lot of world history and read a lot. But when I was homeschooling my youngest child, they had a curriculum for world history that was for fifth and sixth graders. It went across those two grades. And one of the things you realize the way, because they taught history of the world holistically. So for the first time ever, I knew there was feudalism in Japan, and I'd seen a lot of documentaries in it. And I knew there's feudalism in Europe, and there's also feudalism in Africa and in Asia. And actually, if you came over, there's a kind of feudalism that was here in the New World, on the North and South America. And everybody's going, where is this going? Well, until I was studying this book with my child, I didn't realize, because they did everything in date order. They didn't do things from war to war. They did things date wise, and you saw date lines that went across the whole world. And you saw, guess what? When feudalism was the thing to do in Asia, it was also the thing to do in Europe, except Asian feudalism. There's a few little differences, but the concept, the basic concept that defines something as feudalism, which is totally ruling from the top, and the only way you have status within your environment is to pledge allegiance up the chain of command. And then as then there's a period of exploration. Well, there was a lot of us. There were lots of different cultures that were out exploring the crap out of each other. And we call it the period of exploration. And what it really ends up, it was the period of exploitation. Among other things I learned in that was before Europe decided that they had to go plant their flags on all these new continents they were finding, that we were trading for gold from Africa. And they found in this library in Portugal a whole bunch of letters from the Portuguese king to some kings in Africa, talking to them as if they were peers. But then as soon as slaving started and other exploitive behaviors began to happen, all of a sudden the kings, the rulers in Europe would not consider those people their equal, and wouldn't consider their rulers their equal. So stuff happens in the world in waves. And if we could just see the whole world as one thing, we'd see, oh, this was happening here and this was happening here, and this is kind of our part in it. And we might get a whole lot less upset about. I mean, there's always been wars and there's always been things. We just haven't, the theory was we just didn't know about it because it took the news too long to get to us. And we also didn't pay attention. And now we're paying attention. And I can't create world peace sitting on my little station, but I can help other people find peace within themselves. And then the more of us that are peaceful and settled, then we send that vibration out. Now, what does this have to do with the elementals? The elementals all started disappearing basically out of their cultures, except the ones that stayed really close to the land. They disappeared out of Britain, Ireland, Scotland, the Celts during the Industrial Revolution. And it really started a little bit before that, when they threw the real farmers, the people who raised crops on the land, off the land to graze sheep. It's another thing. But the people by working with Gaia and being close to Gaia and being attached to the Mother Earth, being attached to the land, Gaia is our mother as humans. Gaia is also the mother of the elementals. And the first thing the elementals told me when I met them was, we're not angels, we're not aliens, we're not anything that comes from out there. We were born on this earth like you were. And they went away and had to go hide because the human disregard, and the people who started to say, oh, you can't see that. No, you're not seeing fairy rings dance in the fields. You're not hearing music come across the land. All that stuff. The second that people really started to poo-poo all that, and especially the ruling classes, that's why different cultures have different views of dragons. In Asia, there's temples that are built with big high windows at the top of the roof, and that's a place for the dragons to fly through because they're considered a blessing. They're not considered something you need to go fight and conquer. They're not like St. George and the Dragon or any of those folks. They have a very different view. But what happened in our culture, in the culture I came from, was they became more and more disregarded. And it was like people would leave milk out for the wee folk. They'd leave some of what they raised out for the wee folk, so that was their way of paying tribute to them. They have a similar practice in Mexico with the Aleutians, that they leave food and things out with them, and they negotiate with them. They considered them part of their reality. I mean, that they were out there and they saw them. And as mankind became more tied to what they could make from the earth, what they could exploit from the earth, what they could take from the earth, what they could mine from the earth, England was completely covered with trees at one point. It was a forest from one end of that country to the other. You drive around there are not. I mean, you go in the old forest and you can see some big. It's a new forest. They call it the new forest, but their definition of new is considerably different than mine. They're in the new forest. I've been there. The trees are gargantuan, and the whole country was covered with trees, and you can see it in the buildings they built. But as they tore more of it down to exploit it, it pushed the people away. But finally, the elementals managed to find a way to work with the people, stay close to them, because they didn't wander off. But then you bring in industrialization, you bring in the Victorian age, you bring in the Earth cycle, which is where Saturn and Jupiter met together once every 4 years for 200 years, except once in that cycle. It's an interesting astrologic cycle. But it brought forth that they were going to exploit the earth. And they had to leave because it's like children, Sometimes people say, they'll meet someone who's abused badly as a child, and they'll find out, that at least abuse was recognition that we're here. And the elementals couldn't do that. So they went and they live in a part somewhere in the energies of this planet. They live in a beautiful, beautiful place, but they're bored with being there, and they know they need to come out and help us. And that's why you're seeing more and more of them, because the prediction of the ley lines basically going straight and widening happened this last December, the winter solstice. And they are now up trying to figure out how they can contact with us. And they're walking in to the war of light and dark that we're all feeling around us. So that's why your elementals are popping up. And they are pesky little critters. I'll see them. I'll see shadows of them because I can see from where I sit in my living room back to my office. And I can see when they've been flitting around in here. And then I know that I'm going to have to look around to find stuff because they love rearranging my decks. Don't ask me why, but they love doing that because they know I'll notice it. But their big plea is they are here for a specific kind of energy that connects our souls and our vibration back to the earth. And they are not angels. I can remember them saying, we're not angels and we're not aliens. Now, they look a little exotic in a way. Jada's very long and slender, and they tend to take a form that you can relate to, which is why the Aleutians that they have pictures of in Mexico look different than the Celtic, the figures that you would see from the British Isles. And, just accept them as you see them. The little guy whose name I can't say, because if you've not noticed, I'm not real good with very different sorts of names, sounds I haven't learned to speak. I studied no foreign language except Latin, which is a dead language, so it doesn't count. And so I have trouble. Jada gave me her name, and I spell it Jada. I have no idea how else to spell it. But she's a tall, lanky, sylph-looking Irish critter. And the little guy looks, if you slow down long enough, he might look a little elfin, but I'm not sure. He just likes to jump around and be all over the place. So and as your vibration gets better, it'll get easier for them to understand you too. Because it's not just our vibrations are where ours are, theirs are where theirs are. And so, and I don't put numbers on, you've got to be at 4.3 in order to see this. I don't do any of that. So you just need to kind of get in to see him. And last night I listened to a 2-hour show on the legends of the fairies and their comings and goings. And in the other parts of the earth, they came and went, much like they did in Europe and much like they did um, in Asia. And in Asia, it's because there were so many people there, it's very difficult for them to stay relating to them because the people were having enough trouble just relating to being part of a human process and part of a human civilization. So, Jen, they may be pesky. Don't call them pesky little critters. Call them cute little things. Except for the one that stole my cards. That's not cute little thing. Okay. Everything is falling into place with step-parents' health. Will this situation keep moving forward in a good way for him and his will? I'm going to lay a real quick reading on what's going on around him, TME, for you right now. Okay. Tammy's step parent. He's actually taking some of it much better than he thought he was. It took him a long time to understand that he's going to have to, he wants to stay where he is. He didn't want to move at all. But now he's stopped fighting things and is looking for the proper retreat. They don't like specialists. They don't like talking to doctors. They don't trust them. That's always difficult when you have a health problem. And they're still walking their way through the darker sides of themselves about dealing with this. But I think in the end, he's going to buck up. There'll be like a sudden time you're going to see a change and you're going to go, oh my God, what happened? Where he finally accepts it and he realizes this is the next challenge in his life. It's not the one he wanted, but it's the one he got. And it's going to make it easier for you. But overall, the way those cards progressed, it's positive. Yes. We'll all send good love and light to you, Sandra. And about your friend who committed suicide. There's a lot of people choosing not to stay. The fear is just cranked up to that level, but don't tie into this. And I don't know how all your American friends are doing. I'm doing fine. I don't watch the news. The news is not giving us all the whole truth. And every time they say something, you go, I know you're lying to me because your lips are moving. But we're moving along. We're trying to support each other as we can. Somebody wants us to send aliens. That's Dr. Gail's show, Lisa. She's got one, I think, tomorrow, and she's got Solaris Healing Center on Saturday. Go to Dr. Gail, Skywalking with Moon. She talks about aliens more than anyone. And this lady has the opposite. Those of you who have the 4:00 in the morning club that cannot go back to sleep, there's two things people are doing. They're like sleeping all the time, or they're finding it very difficult to wake up. I went through a period where I just finally gave up and slept. And that as soon as this show's over, I'm going to go up front. I'm going to say I'm putting up a documentary on the TV that I'm watching, and I'm going to take a snooze. So, just saying. Is Rory not getting any better? Rory Duff is the guy who really brought to a lot of us ley lines. And when I was first studying crystals, it was his talking about how some energetic change had happened on the planet, and it was marked in the rocks, and it was happens every 13,000 years, and they could follow it back. And we're in that period of time when those changes come again. And I, who deal with crystals all the time, went, crap, if it can screw with the rocks, what's it doing to us? And that's true. Celtics, they're much closer. Well, actually, I think the hole I went through in the ocean that went to where they are is in the North Sea. I think the British sort of elementals are there, but they're also feeling them more strongly in the East. They're also feeling them, and I tell you, in Mexico, they really respect them. I don't think I have my picture, but they built a highway and it kept collapsing. It was between Cancun and one of the other resort areas on that, and they built the road 4 times, and weird crap would happen to it. It would fall apart. Finally, the native seers went to the government and said, you ran it over the Aleutia's town. They didn't like that. So I actually have a picture of when they rebuilt the highway, that under the overpasses, they built houses, sort of like the fairy houses we build and put in our gardens. They put them under the roads. The state did this. Let me see if I have that picture. I really need to get that picture put back in here because it's too good. Nope, don't have it. But there's a picture of this Mexican style little house built under the highway, and if you can read the text, that's what it says. It was there to help the Aleutians so they would leave the road alone. So, if you treat them with respect, they'll do. Okay, oil painter. Oil painter's happy to be here, and she's listening and learning from all of us, which is what we do every day. And yeah, like I said, check your memberships. I know I checked on a couple people I hadn't heard from in a while, and I'd been cut off, and we can't do that. I mean, as a person running a channel, I can't go in there, and unless you say something horrible and despicable, I have reason to be afraid of you. It takes a lot to get somebody wiped off. So yeah, and yeah, we don't need any AI dragons and fairies. They're My mother's family comes from the west coast of Ireland, and they live near the village where, after World War II, the British came in and said, well, we're going to build a road to here. They're going to build a street. They were going to go through a forest ring. And they said, we're just going to plow that down. And the people went out and said, don't do that. And they said, but it's straight from here to here. Go back to the old Roman road theory. If you don't know about that, look that up in England. So they went and they built the road there. And they had so many accidents there in the first 10 years that they ended up tearing the road up, building it around the woodland, and letting the woodland grow back in where they'd taken them away. And Dragonfly, I don't know what to tell you about, checking your membership, because I can't go check them. Okay, and full moon will also keep you awake. Full moon will put you to sleep. Full moon, you just kind of got to figure out how it fits with you. Or if you don't have a basic chart done, go get a basic chart done by a good astrologer. Dorothy Morgan, who you saw here, she was with me a week ago. She's very good because she will put the other asteroids and planetoids on there if you want. But she really deals with the basic planets. And as far as I'm concerned, those are what I look at when I look at my own chart. And Dorothy did a chart for me, and we verified her chart against a chart I'd drawn for myself years ago. And it was very good. And hit the like button, it helps our algorithms. Okay. Dragonfly, you may need to go to someone. Jeffrey's in the chat, and I know how to reach him. Is in the chat. It's called his channel's called Ripe Color. He does a different kind of. It's like a Reiki sort of healing technique, but if he could get up here from Mexico and stare at me badly, he'd say, "It's not Reiki. It's a Reiki, and it's an energetic healing." I mean, all of what we do is deal with energy, and I get tired of the titles, but he does a thing called IED. If you contact him, he can explain to you what it is. And I can tell you from having on election night had my chakras scrambled that yes, you may need to get some real help and get your chakras rebalanced or find out what's out of whack. 2019 is a long time for us to deal with disrupted sleep, but I know the date. I know it's the 2020 date when we knew it was coming. Okay, Celtic Seer is also a good astrologer, even though she works in New York and does stuff other than that. This last moon, the full moon in Cancer, took place yesterday. My moon happens to also be in Cancer, but not close enough to really. My moon's at like 10 degrees, my natal moon. When I'm talking about my moon, I mean my natal moon. But it did stir up a lot of emotions. It really, I spent some time talking to an old friend of mine last night who's just become a grandmother, and it's bringing up a lot of crap was happening around her when she gave birth, and she's watching her daughter not suffer the same kind of crap. And I said, I hate to tell you, but it's just giving birth does it. But now's the time to let go and focus on what serves you. Focus on what is your success, not what's going to wake you up at 3 a.m. And Jeffrey has a little fairy house in his garden in Mexico City. It's really cute. Okay. If any, that's kind of, I think this may have been all over the map, but if you guys will go to the description of this show that will be attached to it when it's put out there, it has the link to the behavioral scientists organization, and it's an inspiration for the coming year for how to deal with 2025. And yeah, Oil Painter went through the nightmare of she was sending her money somewhere. I'm not, if I'm seriously thinking about teaching a thing on how to grid, and it's going to be a behind a paywall membership thing. And if I do that, I'm going to do it with Patreon. I've talked to a lot of different readers. People don't seem to have the same problem. And Sharon Sipe just put on the link to the Behavioralist Scientists Organization inspirations for your intentions and warding off anxieties in the new year, which from what I saw looks like something we all would like to do. So now I'm going to pull from my new favorite deck, Shamanic Crystals Oracles. Yeah, YouTube's handed a lot of its stuff over to AI. And you talk to my child that's deep into the world of computers, not fond of AI, has only nasty things to say about it, especially when it programs. And my child doesn't program. That's not the card I picked. Beautiful card. Chrysocolla. Create your own world inspired by beauty. And this is a beautiful stone. It's not terribly expensive. It looks a whole lot like turquoise. It's got a weird spelling. It's Chryscolla. Chrysocolla. Dear soul, who comes to me, I introduce myself. I am the spirit of Chrysocolla. Green and blue are my shades, and the ocean and the worlds merge within me on the beautiful planet Gaia. I'm a lush earth. I give beauty and abundance to the spirits of the earth, and that the heavens and the heaven can create through me. It's a beautiful stone. It is a time to bring your thoughts and emotions to a higher vibrational level so you can manifest your deepest desires. Yes, you now have the opportunity to fearlessly release all that is barren within you. If you've lost confidence over time because of past events, you must remember, dear soul. And I have to turn a page. And I don't turn well with one finger. Okay. Earth suffers if it does not have enough rain for a long time, or if her oceans or seas remain polluted. Think of them as her emotions, perpetually needing a flow to nourish her. She cannot allow life in her to dry up. In fact, she's been put in place a cycle to harmonize the whole ecosystem. I am communicating this to you because you are losing yourself behind 1,000 of excuses. You're polluting your being, resisting change, and the desires within you need to be expressed. By doing that, you fail to see the beauty where it is. I assure you, my dear soul, that beauty is everywhere, even where you think it is not. And I wish for you a life to be filled with the enthusiasm for beauty and the acknowledgement of how to fulfill it totally. And basically, her first messages are create your own world inspired by beauty and let things go. Yeah, oil painter, I've lost weight. And I'm glad people are saying this is just the show they needed today. I'm trying to do more spiritual stuff. I find when I read for the collective that everybody brings up what other people need to hear. But I'm sending everyone love and beauty. I've got some little bit of work to do today, but since I read, I can't work the crystals again. I'm working on getting the garden stuff together. I'm down to 2 gardens. I sold one yesterday. So if you want a garden, there's 2 of them left. It's like somebody said, oh my God, I always thought I'd get an egg from you. Well, not until I figure out a way to manufacture them more efficiently or figure a better way out to do it. And the eggs, the gardens, the grids, the readings, what I try to teach you, all those things are of one whole. They're the whole that you are the solution to your problems. And I know when I was in my 30s and I had a therapist say that to me, I just burst into tears and said, that's an effed up answer. What book do I need to read? There are no books. I mean, it ends up it's us, so. And y'all take care, and I'll see you probably the next time I'm going to be live is with Scott on Sunday. Bye.